Good evening, everyone. We're here starting a couple minutes early, but glad you could join us. I'm Diane Fitzgerald, and on behalf of our sponsors, EcoSattva's Down East, Sierra Club Maine, and also the Peace and Justice Center of Eastern Maine, I warmly welcome you to the 6th class in our 9-class series on eco-anxiety and the pandemic. And we've titled this class, Letting Our Eco-Anxiety Transform Us, Part 2. So tonight, thank you all for keeping yourselves on mute until we get to the part of the class where everyone will have a chance to talk. And I am the one who will be leading this class. So some of you know, I am a Soto Zen Buddhist priest, the resident teacher for Zen Down East, and also a member of the senior teaching community at the Greater Boston Zen Center. In our write-up for this class, we described it as learning to make friends with uncertainty and reframing our relationship to uncertainty as a way of coming alive instead of it being a source of anxiety. I'll start this class by talking about this transforming of our eco-anxiety, and I will be offering a few meditation exercises that we'll have a chance to try and then talk about a bit. So I just wanted to start with a brief overview, especially for any of you who may be joining us for the first time tonight. Welcome. We started this series of classes with a few classes largely using our mind to confront the reality that we're facing with the eco-crisis and the pandemic, the enormity of it, the complexity of it. And in some cases, in some ways, I know that this has been preaching to the choir because all of you are intimately aware and familiar with the crisis, which is why you have shown up week after week, and I'm so gratified to see so many of you. But I think it is very important to confront the detail and enormity and the subtlety of this crisis, and it can't be bypassed. And so I am also grateful to our presenters for having helped us learn as much as possible in the short time that they had available to them. So those are the first few classes. Then we moved more into what I'll call a heart practice, connecting, acknowledging our grief over what is happening and becoming aware of our interconnectedness. Our last class was especially helpful in that regard. And this class too is more focused on this heart practice, this way of turning inward. And I think people are finding it necessary in order to get through this increasingly crazy time to turn inward and to refocus on ourselves, not in a narcissistic way, but in a way of reflecting on what are the fundamental questions in our lives. What is the meaning of our life, and what do we value? And meditation practice is a way into this. So that's going to be the focus of tonight's class. And then the 3 classes that will succeed this one, I think of as entering more into a body type practice. How do we actually engage physically ourselves in the addressing the crises? And our next class will be talking about how we work with active hope without being attached to outcomes. The class after that, how to work with diverse communities, which is a great challenge for us. And then finally, we'll have speakers from some eco-activist groups who will be talking to us about ways, specific ways in which we can engage. So now on to making friends with uncertainty. So COVID-19 and the eco-crisis have heightened our sensitivity to the fact of uncertainty. There are a lot of questions about the pandemic. When will there be a vaccine? Will it be effective? What's happening now that the schools are opening? Is my job secure? Can I trust any vaccine that's going to be produced? When will life be normal again? And I read a statement from someone recently that I thought really captured the anxiety present. And he said he wished there was a finish line, no matter how far off. There's no set time, he said. If there was a set date, you could say, okay, and prepare for that, but there isn't. The eco-crisis, too, is full of uncertainty. Although we know it's real, and the forest fires on the West Coast have certainly made it vivid and visual to all of us. And we know it's driven by human factors, but it is inherently complex. And so we don't know when and where and what the effect of it will be. And the uncertainty surrounding future climate policies, greenhouse gas emissions, tipping points that we talk about, all of this leads to a sense of helplessness that we feel. And that combined with the political uncertainty, the racial and social justice uncertainty, the financial uncertainty, it is all causing us to vividly receive right now the challenge of this time. And the challenge is that we humans abhor uncertainty, and we'll do just about anything to avoid it. Even choosing a bad outcome over an unknown good one. There was a study, a British study, that people, when they experienced more anxiety when they had a 50% chance of receiving an electric shock than when they had a 100% chance of receiving an electric shock. So this great discomfort that we have with uncertainty is a fact of being human. And the EcoSattva group, which is one of the sponsors of this course that I lead, we have been spending the last year and a half studying, discussing, reflecting on everything that we're bringing to you in this course, everything that we've invited you to join us on. And it wasn't easy. We experienced great overwhelm by the facts of the eco-crisis, and then as the pandemic arose, the facts of the pandemic. We experienced grief, we experienced feelings of helplessness, but I'll always remember that at one point, a member of the group excitedly compared this time to the French resistance during World War II. Yes, we know it's bleak. Yes, we don't know what the outcome is going to be, but now is our time to respond to the crises of our time. And what better way to spend a life than to give yourself to that which you most care about? So this, for me, is an example of making friends with uncertainty. Facing uncertainty and becoming intimate with its close cousin, impermanence, builds emotional resilience, because we learn how to tolerate uncomfortable feelings. We learn how to be with these uncomfortable feelings instead of identifying with them. And it's actually possible to come to embrace uncertainty as a way to open to our lives, as a way to transform our lives. And I hope tonight I will be able to convey a little bit of it with what I'm saying and with the exercises that we'll be sharing tonight. To be human is to experience constant change and to be aware of our own mortality. The American Buddhist nun, Pema Chodron, who is in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, she calls this groundlessness. Groundlessness. How can we relax into the groundlessness of being human? Our usual impulse, right, is to avoid it at all costs. It is to grab onto whatever we think will numb us to our basic groundlessness, whether it's drinking or eating or using drugs or watching Netflix or being overly engaged in social media. All of this are ways that we try to avoid feeling groundlessness. And Buddhist teaching is that it's not uncertainty or impermanence per se that is the cause of our suffering. Rather, it's our resistance to uncertainty and impermanence. And as Pema Chodron says, our discomfort arises from all of our effort to put ground under our feet, to realize our dream of constant okayness. Many people are introduced to meditation as a way to deal with physical pain. It involves directing your full attention to the painful sensation and breathing in and out of the place that hurts. Instead of trying to avoid the discomfort, you open yourself to it completely. You become receptive to the painful sensation without dwelling on the storyline. This shouldn't be happening. Maybe this will never be over. Maybe I'll never be out of this. I shouldn't feel this way. So instead of dwelling on the storyline, you just open yourself completely to the sensation itself. And we use this same approach with psychic pain, such as anxiety. We open ourselves fully to the sensation, the physical experience of anxiety, letting whatever interpretations our mind generates be, and simply experience the anxiety directly. When we do this, even for a short time, we often find that our ideas about the anxiety have less force, and we have a slightly different relationship to it, an ability to be with it without identifying with it, without the storyline ramping up our feeling of panic. Usually, right, when the least amount of anxiety arises, we rev up our thoughts about it, and we try to run from it. And this only serves to strengthen it. I think we all know this from experience. With meditation, we counter that impulse by training in being present with whatever arises and not running off to our comfort zone. So tonight, our first meditation practice will center on our anxiety in the face of uncertainty and impermanence. This anxiety makes us feel vulnerable, which we don't like. It can show up in different forms. It doesn't necessarily have to be nervousness. It can be despair. It can be depression. It can be anger. It can be just a feeling of everything's not okay, or I just don't understand. And instead of thinking of these feelings as being bad, we can think of them as signs that we're actually in touch with groundlessness, which is how things really are. Things really are groundless. And these are signs that we're actually in touch with the reality of that. We can spend our whole life suffering because we can't relax into how things really are, or we can learn how to embrace the open-endedness of what it means to be a human being. So, this first meditation practice will be only 5 minutes. So no need to panic, just 5 minutes. And right now, I'm going to ask everyone to turn off their video. And you won't be able to see me either. Because I think one of the things with Zoom is that we spend too much time looking at ourselves and feeling self-conscious and comparing ourselves. And so by turning off your video, it will give you a little way to be more present with this. And the way you turn your video off is there should be a picture of a camera, video camera on your screen. And if you touch it, it says stop video, then that should work for you. But if you can't do it, it's not a problem. It just might be helpful. So meditation can be done sitting in a chair or on a cushion or bench. For tonight, we're going to practice sitting on a chair because that's what most of us are doing. The posture is important. Meditation is body practice. With your feet flat on the floor, sit up straight instead of leaning back against the chair, with a slight curve in the small of your back, so that your shoulders are squarely over your hips. Place your hands in your lap, palms up, with the left on top of the right, and your thumbs gently touching. Lower your gaze so that your eyes are slightly open to let the light in, but you're not focusing on anything. In a moment, I'm going to ring a bell to start the meditation. Bringing your attention to settle on your breath wherever it feels most vivid. Noticing the full duration of your in-breath and your out-breath for just a minute. Now, noticing the sensation in your body when you call to mind eco-anxiety or COVID-19 or the fires on the West Coast, or maybe something more specific and more personal to you. Where is the sensation located in your body? Giving the feeling your full compassionate attention for just a bit. Dropping the storyline about the feeling and just having a direct experience of the feeling without interpretation. It's not good or bad. Just being present with the sensation. Does the sensation remain the same for very long? Does it shift and change? Feeling the groundlessness of it, feeling the open-endedness of it. Now, returning to the breath, settling on wherever it feels most vivid, noticing the full duration of the in-breath and the out-breath for just a minute. Now we're going to go into some small breakout rooms for just 5 minutes with maybe only 4 people in each room. Some people may feel a bit anxious about opening up to strangers. And this too can be seen as practicing with uncertainty, being willing to expand our comfort zone a little bit. A recent article in the New York Times talked about how the pandemic is causing us all to become socially awkward. So I'm going to read from this for a minute. The Times wrote, research on prisoners, hermits, soldiers, astronauts, polar explorers, and others who have spent extended periods in isolation indicates social skills are like muscles that atrophy from lack of use. People separated from society, by circumstance or by choice, report feeling more socially anxious, impulsive, awkward, and intolerant when they return to normal life. Psychologists and neuroscientists say something similar is happening to all of us now, thanks to the pandemic. We are subtly, but inexorably losing our facility and agility in social situations, whether we are aware of it or not. The signs are everywhere. People oversharing on Zoom, overreacting, or misconstruing one another's behavior, longing for, but then not especially enjoying contact with others. The way to minimize this creeping social anxiety is to block out time every day to connect with others. So here's a chance to work on both our eco-anxiety and our social anxiety. And I want you to know that the breakout room conversations will not be recorded. So just a little bit more explanation about the breakout room. Upon entering, turn on your video if you haven't already and unmute yourself. And then each person can spend about 1 minute, maybe saying your name, expressing your reaction to the meditation exercise, or maybe even just asking a question and holding it, not needing it to be answered. And the rest, while that person is talking, we'll practice what we call active listening. This is giving your full attention to the person speaking without judgment or opinion and without forming what your own response might be. This practice of active listening is also a meditation practice, and it can be one of the greatest gifts that we can give to each other is to receive and feel the power of someone openly and non-judgmentally listening to us. So you'll only be in the breakout rooms for 5 minutes, very short, and then you'll automatically be brought back into the main meeting room. So Leslie, my technical assistant here, could you please open the breakout rooms? And then everyone should get a prompt and should confirm that on your individual screens. I hope so. This is always, the technology is always a bit of a wonder. So thank you all. And I'd like to say that although we did this meditation exercise in our chairs with our gaze lowered, it is possible to do this anywhere, anytime, and once a day or many times a day. Just stopping and noticing the feeling that we're having without interpretation, acclimating ourselves to accepting the uncertainty of our human condition and increasing our tolerance for unwanted feelings, allowing these feelings to be without necessarily identifying with them. Instead of thinking of these feelings as bad, thinking of them as signs that we are actually in touch with the basic groundlessness of being human, with the open-endedness of our collective human situation, with how things really are. So now we'll try an exercise in tolerating uncertainty, which is about allowing paradoxes to be without needing to solve them. This exercise is called a Venn diagram. Not a Venn diagram, not the usual V-E-N-N, but Vent, V-E-N-T. And it's called that because it's about ventilating the paradoxes we hold. And I saw this in the Buddhist Peace Fellowship newsletter and thought it would be useful for those of us living in this world of needing to hold multiple paradoxes and encountering the seeming impossibility of doing that. So we draw intersecting circles of two or more truths that seem mutually inconsistent. But it's the space in the middle where the circles intersect that is the sweet spot of holding the paradox. When we can hold the paradox, we can act without being frozen by the seeming polarity of it. Walt Whitman said in Song of Myself, "Do I contradict myself? Very well then, I contradict myself. I am large, I contain multitudes." Playing with Venn diagrams can be a great way to vent your frustrations at just how hard it is to contain multitudes. I'm going to show you a few examples, and you can also try this on your own. So, grief and anger versus resilience and courage. Things getting better versus things getting worse. Urgency versus panic. Patience and its near enemy, resignation. Accepting the world as it is, fighting for change. And last one that we probably are all familiar with. I have a drive to help, but I'm so tired, I don't know if I have the energy. Most people have little trust in their ability to rest with uncertainty and paradox, to tolerate uncomfortable feelings. What meditation practice helps us do is to gain the courage to move closer to what scares us, what threatens us, what causes us to become aggressive and selfish. And it turns out that the corollary to being able to do this is to develop compassion for ourselves, for each other, and for even the whole earth itself. So we're going to do a second meditation practice now, and this one too will be only 5 minutes. And it will be a little bit more open-ended than the last one, allowing you to observe your thoughts and emotions without acting on them. Stillness in meditation is absolutely necessary because we have to be able to see how discomfort arises, and it is fundamentally neutral, but we turn it into suffering with our thoughts when we try to push it away. So when meditating, always set a timer and don't get up until the timer ends, even if it's just 5 minutes. Because by setting the timer and staying, we wear away the habit pattern of, I just can't take it anymore. And this can be very liberating. So I'm going to ask everyone to turn off their videos now, and I'm going to disappear from my virtual Zendo as well. So again, with your feet flat on the floor, sit up straight instead of leaning back against the chair. Place your hands in your lap, palms up, with the left on top of the right and your thumbs gently touching. Lower your gaze so that your eyes are slightly open to let the light in, but you're not focusing on anything. I will ring a bell in a moment to start the meditation. Bringing your attention to settle on your breath wherever it feels most vivid. Noticing the full duration of your in-breath and your out-breath. Each time the mind loses focus, return to your breath like it's an anchor. Now, expanding your awareness to the feeling of your body and breath. Now, expanding your awareness to sitting with the whole earth right here and now. Body, breath, mind, and earth. Returning your attention to the full duration of the in-breath and the out-breath. So now we'll go back to our small breakout rooms, again, just for 5 minutes. And each one of us spending about a minute talking, and everyone else practicing active listening, listening with an open heart, an uncluttered mind, giving your full attention to the speaker. A great gift from each one of us to each other. So Leslie, could you please open the breakout rooms? Okay, we're back. And welcome everyone. Our final meditation exercise is the practice of just sitting, what we call in Zen shikantaza. Shikantaza practice does not prefer one object of mind over another. We sit with our awareness in our hara, which is our lower abdomen. And this time, I won't interrupt your practice. And it's just going to be 3 minutes this time instead of 5 minutes. And when you notice your mind engaging in doing, the practice of shikantaza is to just desist. It's not a practice of watching your thoughts or spacing out. It's a practice of intimately engaging with what is arising and turning toward it without engaging in doing. Instead, we just gratefully receive what is arising. Body, breath, mind, and universe together. Letting go of all certainty, resting in not knowing, including not knowing whether we're doing it right or not. So I'm going to ask everyone to turn off their video one last time. And once again, with your feet flat on the floor, sitting up straight, placing your hands in your lap and lowering your gaze, I will ring a bell in a moment to start the meditation. Welcome back. This time we will not go into the breakout rooms. We'll just allow that practice, shikantaza, just sitting practice, to sit with you for a while. And I'd like to say that many people try meditation and give up. I think there are two main reasons for this. The first is that people expect to stop their thoughts. It's not possible to stop thinking. And the harder you try, the greater the chatter in your mind. But it is possible to have a different relationship with your thoughts. I no longer fully believe my thoughts, which might sound a little nuts, but it's actually super liberating not to be pushed and pulled around by them to that same degree. So, first encouragement is, if you decide to take up meditation, don't do so with the goal of stopping your thoughts. And the second main reason I think people give up on meditation after they start is that they have a goal. So having any kind of goal, trying to attain anything, actually sets us up for judging and failing and giving up. The meditation itself becomes the goal in time. So don't try to stop your thoughts, and try not to have goals. Try not to be attaining anything. And if you do take up this practice, I suggest that you try to do it regularly, maybe even just 5 minutes a day, rather than sitting down one day for half an hour and then not practicing the next day because your schedule's busy and you have lots of other things that you have to attend to. But just having this regular 5-minute a day practice can start a lifelong practice of meditation that will grow and mature, and which you will on your own find its value. And again, set a timer when you do to wear away that old habit pattern of, I just can't take this anymore. So our time tonight is too short, of course, to go into any great detail or even to answer questions. But I do want to offer you my personal email, which will come up on the final screen. I would be delighted to respond to any questions you might have. And if enough people are interested, I would be glad to offer an introduction to meditation class. So you can let me know if that's something that you might like to explore. I've also listed a number of books on the recording page. So when you go to the page that has the recordings of all of the classes, which is a great resource, you'll find under this class a list of resources, books that you might want to try for beginning meditation, or even if you've practiced for a long time. As we say, Zen mind is beginner's mind. And before we say goodnight, I just want to give special thanks to Leslie Gaiduco and Richard Olston for their technical support for this class, without which I would not be able to do anything. And so bowing to both of you, thank you so very much. And thank you all for being here. This final screen, you'll see that our next class, next Monday, September 21st, is going to be on cultivating active hope with Fran Ludwig. And Fran is going to be talking about environmental activist and Buddhist scholar Joanna Macy's work on active hope, and the work of Charles Eisenstein, particularly his new book, Climate, A New Story. I know it's going to be a great class, and I hope you can join us next Monday as well. So thank you all so much for being here, and everyone stay safe and well, and have a good night. We'll leave this screen up for a little bit so that you can copy it if you want to.